you went to the internet looking to see
like Facebook and stuff.
like who's casting for Shark Tank.
Does any of my friends in LA have any connections to casting for Shark Tank?
And you end up on Survivor.
Yeah.
That's
So that's.
Hey everyone, I'm Derrick Fox and you're watching A Bunch of Losers. Edna is my guest today from Survivor. We learn about all things Survivor, how she ended up on the show by accident, being a doctor, an entrepreneur, and a children's book author. And of course, I challenge her with the blind taste test. Let's go, loser. Edna, welcome.
Thank you, Derrick, for having me.
My goodness. I know it was kind of last minute, but yeah, thank you for being up for this. Let's just get right to it. You were on a South Pacific season of Survivor.
That's right. I had subsequently filmed for Shark Tank as well. There's Shark Tank season 5, but that will be like a segue.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But Survivor,
yeah.
Out of all the reality shows, Survivor is like it's like the OG. It's like Survivor made it onto the screen, and every production company out there was like, we need a reality show.
Mm-hmm. Big Brother,
yeah,
American Idol, all that stuff.
What made you want to be on Survivor?
Well,
it's such a simple question, but it's so difficult to answer, right?
It is. So the short answer is I got recruited for the show. Okay. But the more kind of nuanced answer is that at that time I had started a small business of making numbing cream. I'm an anesthesiologist.
Yep.
And I thought I'd like to bring my small business to Shark Tank. And I think living in Los Angeles, I'm going to find a creative way to get myself on Shark Tank.
Okay.
So I started just looking around, and I saw that, on the closing credits, it says, Mark Burnett Productions.
Right.
So I just started reaching out to some people who might have been on a game show or might have had 1 or 2 degree of separation from the Mark Burnett Production Studios. And I found out that they were castings for Survivor. So that was like on a Tuesday. I was casted basically on that Thursday for Survivor, not Shark Tank.
Right. But you went to the internet looking to see
like Facebook and stuff.
Like who's casting for Shark Tank.
Does any of my friends in LA have any connections to casting for Shark Tank?
And you end up on Survivor.
Yeah.
So
that's kind of the short story of it. And so I went to this open casting at in Santa Monica.
So you see that Survivor's auditioning and casting, and you're like, this could be cool.
Yeah, I'm all leaning into it. I said, if I get a yes every step along the way, maybe I can get to Mark Burnett. So when I went to my initial open casting, I was like, hi, yes, I'm interested in Survivor. I'm from Colorado. I camp and I've done all these medical missions and I've lived overseas. No big deal, and so I'm just like playing up
that right there. If you would have told me that, I'd be like, this girl's gonna win the thing.
No, so yeah, so I'm like, this is all true stuff. Like
right.
I've gone camping and not as extreme as Survivor.
Right.
I lived in India for a couple of weeks for a medical mission. That was really hard, and that was a different experience as well. But I said, if I can do those things and be separated from the internet, be separated from my family for just 2 weeks, what's an extra total of 39 days? I could do that. That's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And so finally I got,
so they
selected enough. They said yes enough times for me to get to final casting on that Thursday. And I didn't expect Mark Burnett to be there with Jeff Probst. And there I was. And I said, hi, I'm Dr. Edna Ma. I'm the founder of BareEASE cream. And I am here I did my pitch for Shark Tank. And they said, you're at Survivor casting. Do you realize that? I said, yes, but I would like to pitch to you, Mr. Burnett, and I'm hoping that you could consider me for your other show. And I had no idea. I had no idea anything about anything. Like
that's such a no-no.
Yes, it's like so bad form. That's so rude.
Yeah.
So I'm like, and it was at this point, the CBS executives even Jeff Probst is like, what is going on with this
Right.
person? You
Like,
have
you're
major
crazy.
balls. You have
Right.
major balls to come in here and just basically insult us to our faces because Shark Tank is ABC. That's like a totally different network.
Oh fuck. It is, huh?
And so I had no idea how bad it was. And so he's like, so he pulls me out of casting. And at this point, everybody's like kind of separated because they don't want you to be in cahoots with anybody, making alliances before the show.
Correct.
And Mark Burnett pulls me aside and he's like, I really like your energy. I like that you've taken this really big
leap.
This leap. You have a lot of chutzpah, as they would say. And we would like to give you a chance. It's a 1 in 18 chance of winning $1 million. If you say yes, it's 1 in 18. If you say no, it's we won't give you that chance. You have 2 hours to make a decision. And so I'm like, they're calling my husband. He's at work. And I'm like, you won't believe what just happened. They want me to go in 2 weeks, but I have to say yes, like
right now. Yeah.
Now.
Yeah.
That's how it happened.
Oh my God.
I was
you were
so unprepared.
You're crazy.
I was. I still a little bit. I still am a little bit.
So how did you I mean, you're a doctor.
Yeah.
we all know like it's not like an easy thing to just be like, hey, I'm gonna go be on a reality TV show. Like
that was not easy.
How did you make that happen?
So I was already issued, like they have the call schedule. So you have to be at the hospital and you have to have a certain response time. You cannot be taking call from the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah.
So I had to pull a lot of favors from my work colleagues, and I need to get off the call schedule. I need to get off my work schedule like immediately. And of course, you sign this multi-million NDA.
Yeah.
You cannot tell them what you're doing.
Right.
And I think the majority of people just thought, I'm an anesthesiologist. I probably just went to rehab.
Is that like common in the is that common in the field?
The kind of the incident rate of anesthesiologists of substance abuse is about the same. In the general public, it's about 11%. So yeah.
No way.
Yeah. But we have access to the drugs, so you'll see.
Right. You're like, oh
yeah.
But it's not regulated how.
Oh, they count every drop.
Yeah, they do that at bars with liquor. Like
they count everything, and I'm like, they're very diligent about it. You have to sign. You have to do a witness person. Sometimes in some facilities, you have to do a fingerprint verification of your presence of wasting it, and then they audit the syringes that you waste to see if it's indeed the concentration and indeed the drug that you've disposed.
Wow, that's intense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was scrolling your Instagram and I saw how you posted like there was 3 different drugs that are in almost identical vials. I mean, the caps are green. One cap was a slight different shade of green, but like to like a quick grab, and then
it could be super dangerous.
Yeah, you have to like really make sure you are looking at every label like twice, 3 times.
I definitely do. Makes you a little OCD.
Yeah, that anxiety that gives me anxiety.
This gives me anxiety.
This whole thing is giving me anxiety.
These cameras are giving me anxiety.
That story you just told me, my anxiety is through the roof right now. That would be like me going to Gordon Ramsay and being like, "Can you get me on Shark Tank?"
Or just imagine if you had a food challenge or a challenge, and you had like. You didn't know if it's salt, MSG, or sugar. And you're like, okay, you've just messed up your dish or your final challenge.
Yeah, and the cake comes out of the oven flat. Well, it's like your patient, flatlining your patient. Ah, man, wild. Okay, so then you figured out how to get work covered.
Yes.
Your husband's like, okay, you're going on Survivor. Like, what about our product?
Yes,
was your product already like you were already selling products?
Yes, we were at that time. We were in like all the glossy magazines, so we had a lot of press coverage from like all the like Cosmo and Fitness and all those in style. They had a lot of, so we were really busy. So I just basically dumped all this stuff on my husband to manage the poor guy, and so he was super supportive, and so that was. And literally had 2 weeks, and it had like this long outgoing message. If this call is related to this, please call this. If this call is related to this, please call that. So, and then off I went for 6 weeks almost, because they do some pre.
Yeah. So when you flew out to go do this season, what were you allowed? What did they tell you could bring?
Okay, so we have you're familiar with the format.
Kind of.
It was sort of their comfort item or your personal item. In the past, other contestants have brought their state flag just to, and it's nothing that you can really use on the island. Like
No,
nobody,
so
is that
explain
what
it
you
for
mean?
like a listener
okay, of course.
that has no idea.
So in the earlier seasons or Survivor, they would allow you to bring one luxury item, as they call it, but it can't be anything that was
It can't be like a lighter or a
it can't
hammer.
be, yeah, it can't be like dental floss or a toothbrush or something like that. Nothing practical. They want you to have this sort of like a juxtaposition of something really absurd in the wild versus, and then that we have accustomed to in the first world, and then like appearing on Survivor Island. So there was like a one famous contestant in Survivor who brought his Texas flag when he got won a certain challenge. He got his luxury item, so they used it as like some shelter. But it's just really ridiculous how it
Yeah.
looks out in the wilderness.
Yeah.
My luxury item was one of my products. And so I was hoping they would give me that like 1 second screenshot
You
for.
tried.
So
You're just a hustler.
yeah, I'm hustling. Like, so are you though. I
Yeah.
like it, and I think that's why
Yeah.
you've got such a successful following. But they didn't allow us to have any luxury items that year. So it was nobody got luxury items released to them.
But what else? Like, did you bring like a suitcase with clothes?
Oh
Like,
yeah. So you
Yeah.
bring your clothes, just like whatever you would pack to the
and
South
it's whatever
Pacific.
you can carry.
Yes, and then you have a wardrobe person that will be like, okay, this is you're going to be basically on team blue, and they have like a color palette they work with, and that the other team will be like team red, and the color palette was like, yeah, like
Reds
red
and browns
and yellows,
yeah.
and they have the buffs and the team designations that they have you assigned. So your tone of your color kind of, even if you're not wearing your buff, kind of signals to the TV audience if you're on the red team or you're on the blue team.
Yeah, got that. Okay. But so when when you get to this island, like you're just like dropped off?
Oh yeah, so the sort of like the production side of it. So you're given a handler of your same gender that kind of basically escorts you everywhere from the minute you get off the plane.
Okay.
So my handler was somebody who would just make sure you'd go to the toilet. No, not more than one female contestant can go to the toilet at the same time. Same with the men.
Because they don't want you to form alliances.
Yeah, you don't want you to form alliances. And then at this point, these are the people, these 18 people who are going to be playing the game. And so they take you from the airport in this very bumpy van ride to your pre-production stuff. So our pre-production stuff was more camping. It was because they had just experienced a pretty devastating earthquake, and they didn't really have the infrastructure to support like a large group of tourists, basically.
Right.
So
And where was this filming exactly?
Samoa. So we filmed in the island of Upolu, Samoa, not Western. It's like Western Samoa, not American Samoa.
Wow.
But it's all the same, actually. Just pine, like not pine cones, but palm trees, sandy beaches. It
that
looks
doesn't
pretty
change.
Much,
Yeah.
it's all
And
terrible after a while.
And then when you have to like build shelter, like
yes, so you're just
once it starts filming, you're
yes. So it's sort of like in our situation, we had basically they kind of took all your individual cast pictures and the group picture, and then they had our sort of the surprise twist to keep it kind of fresh. They had 2 returning players, and so Coach, and then Ozzy, and Ozzy's in Venice. If you want
cool.
To,
oh yeah.
If you want to hit him up, I'm sure he'd love to do something.
Did
like
he
this.
win?
This would be his 3rd time playing. So this in our season he did not win.
Okay.
But so they have us all kind of watching this challenge set up, or so that at this point where the 16 people are separated on their teams, but they have returning players. We don't know who they are. They have this big reveal. So the returning players have a kind of a challenge, a physical challenge, race off. And that race off, determines whichever team gets the first award.
Okay.
And that was like Flint and food. So it was like a really big reward.
Survivor is such a crazy like idea of a show, but the fact that you can, I kind of want to do it. I kind of want to go on Survivor.
I think you'd be great because most of it I would say is a psychological.
Which I love that part of it.
Yeah, that's a little bit. I didn't realize how much psychological endurance and stamina you need for that.
Yeah.
But it's just. Am I allowed to say potty words?
Yeah.
Like these reality shows are just like mind fucks, right?
Yeah.
So you're just like is this guy really on my team? He's looking at me in the face.
Right.
I think I can trust him, but am I, just kind of
Right.
undermining your own trust a little bit? Or
Right.
then like, but this guy's telling me this. And so you just like, it just pulls you into this place where you're like, okay, I can't. It's like real life, but accelerated on steroids. And you're like, I don't know if I can, who I can believe. And then you are a real person with real feelings and stuff like that. So.
And you're trying not to show those, and you have this.
Yes.
Because Survivor has like, you have the psychology game of it that like Big Brother has, right? Because you guys vote each other off.
Yes.
Which, like, I mean, it's like, I mean, at least on like MasterChef, like, it's up to the judges. And as long as I'm making good food, I'm not going home. It's like I just got to keep making good food. But we do have team challenges, so there is a little bit of psychology that goes on our show where we kind of form bonds, and you hope that helps getting picked for certain team challenges.
But your work and you advance based on your merit.
Right.
And they didn't have that. There's not really that element.
Right. There's not
in
that.
Survivor.
So, kinda. If your merit is like you're really good at making sure like your team like I don't know, for lack of watching enough episodes, but like if say like I'm on Survivor and I can make food out of like anything that's around, my team's gonna eat, so they're not gonna vote me off, right?
Until a certain point.
We're like, we're 3 days out, we can all not eat for 3 days, let's get them out of here.
Yes, and I think that will it kind of gives you some protection, at least initially.
Yeah.
So
was there like a long stint you went without eating?
There are things you can kind of harvest from the trees.
Yeah.
And the production team kind of around you will say, okay, that's probably not the safest thing to eat. Or like,
they don't want you to die.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the stuff out there was like, oh my God, this was like a Chinese medicine pharmacy. Like, oh, that's a cucumber and that's this and that's a hermit crab. And you know, like this, but they're disgusting. Don't eat those. So I was pretty bad.
Yeah.
I would say the longest time, I would say maybe 1 or 2 days, maybe.
Was it hard like
something.
seeing a cameraman like eating a granola bar and you like...
Oh, okay. So one time there was a camera person coming back from their break, and he was like chewing the granola bar, and we were just all like our jaws are dropped and just like salivating like a cartoon. And the production manager was like basically got reamed because you cannot the assistants, anybody who works on the show, they cannot be seen like basically drinking water or chewing gum or eating food in the presence of the contestants.
Because it psychologically messes with you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
good fun. But you guys get to stay in like a hotel, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like when the lights are out, it's not like we're at the Holiday Inn or anything.
No,
just like...
when the sun goes down, you're like, I hope this flint works, right? Like you're relying on a fire.
Mm-hmm. And it's like if you have to kind of like escape from the shelter to go pee, they don't want you to pee too close to the shelter because obviously that's not very good for the camp because it smells awful. So you kind of have to stumble your way into the weeds and try to get out there without being bit by a snake or scorpion. By the light.
Is that like that's like a real threat? Like they don't like comb the land and get rid of any.
No. Like after a while, like they did thing that they did kind of do. It's like it was kind of obvious to they did lay out these huge bamboo stalks. They're like about 5 centimeters, like 5 inches at least. Like that's like 5 inches, wouldn't you say? Like in
sure.
diameter and about 10 feet long. So you had to schlep those to the area where we decided that that's where you're going to set up camp. Those were clearly not like native vegetation.
Right.
So we were like dragging it over, and that was just designed so there was enough building material for the contestants to build a structure.
To have some shelter.
And then like after a couple of days, you could hear the rats also getting underneath it because it was like sheltered.
Right.
And so you could hear those. And I'm just a really light sleeper. And so that's just not possible to sleep. And you see these people really go crazy. And I've met people who've go crazy from the sleep deprivation and the starvation.
Yeah. I would watch on our seasons like contestants. I could see when it clicked in their head where they just didn't have it anymore. And I loved it. I loved watching it because I was like, you will never see me do that. Like no matter how long this challenge goes, no matter how long, like mentally I can I can survive in chaos and in uncertainty. I'm like comfortable there. It's kind of weird.
It's like their worst lives, their worst days are like being filmed for HDTV and kept forever alive on the internet.
Yeah.
You know, it's so terrible.
Yeah.
It's so terrible.
It's wild. But like, yeah, I could see like I could almost tell you when like someone was gonna have a bad cook because of just like, you know, the stress of it all. I mean, like it's a different psychological stress for us because we're getting, you know, we're competing not only for the prize and the trophy to be the next master chef. We're all cooks and chefs, and we're cooking basically for our idol. Gordon Ramsay is, you know, he's the king of all of this, and we're like, we have to cook for him every day, so there's that stress. And then also like with food, we're only given an hour to cook the dish, and if you mess up, like you just said, that lives on the internet, on TV forever now. And it's like, there's a guy in this last season, he dropped a steak on the ground and put it back on the grill. And it's like, dude, there's cameras on you. Like they obviously they saw it. But like, what were you thinking? Like that.
He probably wasn't, because there's so many more consequences than just that.
Right, because you're thinking, well, if I don't put this steak out, then we could lose because we're short a steak. And then he justified it in his head, you know, under the pressure.
It made sense to him at that time.
And I totally get that, and I want to have him on to talk about it, but yeah, like and our day starts at 4 or 5 in the morning. We get this piece of paper slid under the door, and it has our outfits on it, and it says, wear this, bring this, and you're like, in your head, you're already thinking, well, this outfit looks this way, and then you get down to the lobby and everyone's in different outfits, and you start trying to think, does my outfit matter what's going to happen to me today? Like you start thinking like that, and then you get to set and you're like, there's something's different on the set. Like we season 6, we'd walk in, and when we would walk in to go line up in front to talk with the judges, we'd all like look at the ovens, because if the ovens were at 350 or 375, we knew we were baking. We're probably having a baking challenge. And if they were at 400, we knew we were doing savory, or
so basically you're taking every little clue that you can
everything.
possibly
But then they figured out we were doing that. So then they were setting the ovens to 200 just to get them warm. And then once we got up there, then they'd come in and turn them all on or whatever. Like they figured out that we were figuring things out, and it was like, it's such a psychological thing.
Yes, it is.
But in just such a different way, you know. But and then, you know, but like cooking for your idol, it's like Survivor. You're not like surviving for like your, you know, career idol, right?
No, a lot of people, like, it's not, they don't go on to continue Survivor as a career choice. It's just Jeff Probst that gets to do it. But to go back to what you're saying, this like poor misstep on your co-contestants step with the steak on the floor, like people have been caught on camera saying like inappropriate things, and then you go on the internet when the game is over, and years later this one thing comes up to the top of the Google search, and it basically makes you unemployable. And I've seen people totally screw up their lives because of some stressful, like some inappropriate comment they said under stressful circumstances.
Right.
And that defines them.
Yeah. And I feel like that's something that our society actually kind of needs to like look at, because it can't define you. This is one moment that is being like put on the internet that lives there. It's like if you had every conversation you ever had written down and that got to go to your job before you showed up, like what world is that? That's not functional. That's not sustainable. Like there was a guest that I had on, and when I was looking up doing research, I found some stuff, and my wife was like, "Uh-oh." And I was like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Are you still going to move forward?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's the past. That one incident doesn't change the fact that this person still has a story and has done a lot of great things. Like they should get to come on and tell their story, right?" Like
that's really big of you, because a lot of people are getting canceled today.
Yeah, I
And
don't.
that's that the fact that that word canceled is even a
Yeah,
word in our society.
it's wild.
It's
Yeah,
it
it's
shows
wild.
that we can't really forgive other people.
Yeah, and that's not good. I'm not on the side of cancel culture anymore. There was a moment where I was like, yeah, we like this person shouldn't do that. And like even with Trump, like when they took his Twitter away, I was like, finally, like that dude is causing havoc. But then I stopped, and like my client was like, it's not good, and I'm like, I gotta okay, hold on, let me step back real quick. Let me look at this at a different angle. What like, because my client's very successful. Why does he think this is not good? And then it's like, okay, and then it's like, well, where it's like, if we can do it to him, it can be done to anybody, and then we're just silencing. It's like, have you read 1984? Like, that's not supposed to be a documentary, right? Have you read that book?
It's been a while, but
Yeah.
yes, back in high school.
Right. Go back and read it.
It's probably a good time to read it again.
Oh my God. Like, you like Facebook portal, you know what those are? Where like, and like my clients have them. Like they have the Facebook portal screen in the kitchen. The little camera will follow you when it's on. Like it's wild. And then like
Yeah.
you're reading 1984, and like they have a screen that they cannot turn off in their house that the government is always watching.
Yeah, in our case, it's even scary because people are bringing it into their house voluntarily.
Right. That's the difference. That's the difference. So sorry, what was I saying? Oh, canceling. Yeah. They took Trump's Twitter away, and then we find out, then there's this other girl in Canada who's like leading like women's marches, and she gets canceled. And it's like, oh, this is not good. And it's like people write these comments, and like they say such mean things. It's like, you would never, sitting like this, you would never say what you're typing out. Like people, like that's, I have a solve for this, by the way. I have a solve for the internet,
Sure.
like bullying, if you will. We should not be allowed to type comments. If there's a post, say I post a video of me cooking.
Mm-hmm.
If someone wants to comment, they have to do a video comment, and it has to be of their face. They have to sit there and they have to talk out their comment with their face, and they can't have a mask on. It has to be their iPhone, facial recognition to make a comment, because then they would not say half the shit that they type out.
Yeah, because people they don't want to be accountable for
Right.
the words that come out.
Right.
And they're like behind an account that's like
They
a
don't want to
fake
be
account.
accountable, but they want to hold everybody else accountable.
I think they call those people trolls.
I'm not. I try to not read the comments, but like sometimes it's just too much fun. Like I laugh at the people that like take stabs at me and like say mean things or whatever. Like it cracks me up, because I mean, I know who I am. I'm comfortable with who I am, and I was like the short kid in school, bullied for it my whole upbringing. So it's like it made me tough. Whatever. Like they're not saying anything new. So that it just cracks me up. But
I will say that when you get to the point where you get a lot of negative, like enough negative feedback or enough comments where you have trolls, that's a marker of success right there.
Right?
Because if you just have like 100 followers or something, usually they're just your friends, and generally they're not going to write negative stuff about you.
Right.
So you should wear that with pride.
Yeah. It doesn't bother me. Do you have you had any like crazy Survivor fans like DM you?
I would say most of the Survivor fans, I would say, are like Boy Scouts. A lot of them really are Scout enthusiasts, and so I get a lot of little. I've been off the show for like over 10 years now at this point.
Right, so you didn't even have like social media wasn't leading.
We had Facebook basically and Twitter.
And was MySpace?
I think MySpace is kind of was kind
falling out?
Yeah, it was basically faded to black at that point.
So we didn't have Instagram yet.
It was like barely coming out.
Right.
So as everybody's switching everywhere, but every once in a while you get a random comment. Now I'm so far removed from it.
Yeah.
The people who are reaching out to me are generally reaching out with positive comments.
Yeah.
So I had had a couple positive interactions right from the beginning of the season, and people will, now they're watching on streaming, I will reach out. It's like, I thought did great or whatever. So those tend to be more positive.
Yeah.
I do get a couple, one or two crazies, but we'll
You
save
don't
that for
share.
later.
There's some wild, crazy.
How about your craziest?
Oh, I mean, look, girls aren't the only ones that get unsolicited dick pics. It's been, there's been some wild stuff. People ask me for photos of my feet. Like, I'm like, dude, I'm like, what?
And you just delete? Or what? How do you handle them?
I just ignore it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I have like, I ignore that stuff. And honestly, like, I won't block somebody unless they're harassing people in the comments or saying or harassing me in comments. If you're DMing me shit, like, I'm assuming you're probably drunk and you have that liquid courage, whatever. Like, I'm not. I'll just ignore it. I will only block somebody if they're doing stuff in the comments and being mean in that way. And I usually give them a chance. I'll I'll like write and be like, hey, is this really how you feel? Like, this is a kind of a shitty thing to say. Like, and then they're like, oh my God, I can't believe you're responding to me right now. I'm like, yeah, like, we're all people. Like, you don't have to act like that. Like,
That's good that you even respond, because I'd be like, this is not even worth the 10, 15 seconds of my precious time
right,
to respond sometimes.
Sometimes I think like that, right? But then I'm also like, but how many minutes have I spent scrolling? So like this, responding and maybe changing someone's thought process about future comments, like, I might have helped this person. Like, I kind of look at it like that, because there is a like there's a social like construct that's happening, and it's still evolving, and we have to figure it out. And I feel like I try to just manage what I can and do my little bubble, and if that helps make the bigger bubble better, then I'm doing something. So I don't know. So sometimes I respond.
Well, that's good of you. And a lot of times it's like probably that person's suffering inside themselves
Yeah.
in some way, and
Yeah.
this is how it surfaces and it manifests them.
Yeah.
They have some sort of pain that they're trying to address.
It's probably mostly all that. Anyone that can like go online and just type out hateful things to somebody that they don't even know, they're hurting. They're projecting.
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother conversation, right? Like, how do we fix that? Yeah,
Because everybody has a mic these days. Like, you
Yeah.
know, they are on social media and just like blasting out whatever they want to say sometimes, and
Yeah.
even if it's hurtful, like you said.
Yeah. Well, that's why I feel like if comments were not actual text, you had to use your face, it would clean up a lot of the hateful speech, But how do you get Facebook or Instagram to say, yeah, okay, let's fill, because that's servers, right? I mean, that's so much more data if we're uploading, but less people would be commenting. So I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, okay, so survive. You're an anesthesiologist. That's like one of the higher paid doctors. Like, and you work in Beverly Hills. You have the whitest teeth ever, so you have a really great dentist. Like, I need to know who your dentist is. But like, how do you're like killing it in your field, in your profession. Like, out of all the places to be an anesthesiologist, you're in Beverly Hills. Like, that's so that's awesome. And you're like, you know what? I'm
blushing now.
I'm gonna create this product, and I'm gonna backdoor it through Survivor to get it onto Shark Tank. Like, give me the why.
So many things are going on in my head. Thank you for that very nice compliment. So I feel like those are kind of happening in individual silos. So the whole anesthesia thing, that was like kind of, I was already on this train of going forward on in anesthesia, just being in LA.
Yeah, you went through school. You went through school. Did you went to school in Colorado?
I went to Boulder for undergraduate, and then in medical school, and then I happened to match here at UCLA.
Amazing.
And so I ended up just kind of continuing my career path here. And with the Beverly Hills thing, it's kind of just rolled into itself. And as an anesthesiologist, like, your patients are not really your customers. Your customers are really your surgeons. So they look for you to trust them. They've done the due diligence on if they have they hang their shingle on the door and the customers find them. They'll say, I'm looking for Dr. So-and-so to do my surgery. And then the surgeon is like, okay, I now have, it's my responsibility to find the anesthesiologist that I trust.
Interesting.
And so I have, right after I graduated from residency, I was working at a private hospital here in Los Angeles. And I've just, working there for 5 years before Survivor, before I was sent off to Survivor. I had, established a lot of friends and relationships. And
Right.
then when I came back from the show, it's like I kind of did a personal life reset. I'm like, I need to just kind of figure out what the heck I want, which path I want to take. And the hospital is just really arduous on your life and personal and your time. You're on call like at least once a week. And then if you're doing labor and delivery, that's another day of the week that you're on call. And that's a lot. And if I really envision myself as having children and having a family. And so it's not super compatible the way I wanted to live my life, although there's a lot of super moms out there who are doing those things. And I'm like, tip my hat to them.
I feel like women in general can compartmentalize and organize and structure that stuff way better than men.
Because we have the women taking care of the other stuff. I kind of joke because I have my nanny who helps me with everything. She's sort of like my wife, if you will. Like she takes care of all the domestic stuff that I can't always be present for. So I had formed a lot of friendships and professional relationships with the surgeons. And when they were ready to go do their outpatient surgery cases in Beverly Hills, they just said, would you like to be part of my team? And that's how, and then like you maintain your professional reputation and you do a good job and you get your name passed around, and that's
Right.
your referral network.
So that's going well. And I know, like I said, anesthesiologist, some of the highest paid in the business. And then you're like, I'm going to make a product.
Okay, so I made the product right afterwards. I was like, okay, this is, I'm somebody who likes to try anything at least once. And so my girlfriend,
I have a rule. You have to try it twice to make sure you don't like it.
I think that's a very reasonable approach if the first time didn't kill you.
Fair.
So my girlfriend recommended that I go get like a Brazilian wax, and I'm like, okay, I'll go try anything once. So I went, and I was like, oh my God, this is so painful. And I feel like I was like Sex in the City, that at that time it was like super popular, and like
this is not where I thought this origin story was starting.
Right. So then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go get this thing. I'm like, there's a better way to numb the skin. As an anesthesiologist, we numb the skin before starting an IV on children. Why can't we just take that know-how and apply it to the bikini area? And that's how my product was.
That simple.
Yeah, that simple. And so that's how it started kind of maybe during residency, and then it evolved during after I graduated, and I had the resources and time and bandwidth to actually tackle that problem.
Yeah.
And I think, just being in medicine, you're problem solvers.
Yeah.
And you just have, you identify a problem and you want to fix it. And so that was my fix. And so when I was ready enough, and the show was mature enough, for Shark Tank was mature enough, because initially they were basically taking like an X percentage of your business, whether or not you got a deal on the show or not.
Right.
So they changed the format of that. And so, and my business really wasn't that successful at that point. And so when I was ready for the show, and I felt like the show was like a little bit more evolved, that's how it went about. But after Survivor, basically I went through the normal channels of applying to Shark Tank, which is like you go to the casting page and you go to you submit your video, you do a little essay.
I actually did it for a business that I had, and I'm almost went on, but anyway, keep going.
That because they've also had another Survivor contestant come on as well.
Oh.
Earl Cole.
Okay, I don't know. There's like 42 seasons of Survivor.
Yes, now there is. But they shortened the format, so it's like 21 days now. Cakewalk.
I could crush that.
But I think they do like people who come back. Like not a lot of shows do like to come back, like seeing people in different contexts. So if you were to go on Survivor, I mean, it would be fascinating to a lot of TV audience because you already have a fan base,
right?
And they like to kind of crossbreed that.
Yeah, and also having a idea of food, like if like how, like on your season, if like you guys caught fish, like was there anyone that knows how to take it apart?
Oh well, you guys kind of figure out how to like scale it, but worked in a Chinese restaurant like all proper Chinese immigrants should. And so that was kind of my duty of us is scaling the fish and gutting it and everything like that, and finding a stick in the woods and skewering it and slow roasting that fish.
Amazing.
But we didn't really have a lot of tools.
Right.
To
Did
be
you have
fishing.
a knife?
They had like one machete that really got dull after a while, so I would literally spend hours like
Sharpening it?
sharpening on a stone.
That's amazing.
It was horrible.
Because you guys get this machete, and then like the dudes are like, "Yeah, let's whack some shit," and then
you're
it's like it's dull in 5 minutes.
You're whacking the coconuts with it. You're trying to scale a fish with it. You're just doing everything with that machete. But
and then they throw challenges at you.
Yeah. That part is the fun part, honestly.
Okay.
Because you don't you're distracted. You're not thinking about your thirst or hungry or when was the last time you went to the toilet or had a bowel movement.
Right.
So that was the fun part. Those challenges only came every 2 to 3 days at most.
Interesting.
So you're just like for every episode that you see, it's about 3 days of actual living in the wilderness before one episode because the challenges don't come that frequently.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a lot of drama for them to unfold.
Oh my goodness. What was your favorite part about it? Did you have a favorite part? Like
when I was out there, I would say it was when you want a challenge. It's just like I can imagine how it would feel to because I never played sports. That was a real privilege. Like after school, I took the bus and I went to my parents' Chinese restaurant and I worked every day after school until when I was basically as young as I can remember until it was time to close down the restaurant. And so I feel like that's where I kind of got my work ethic from.
Yeah.
And so I never got to do any sports, but when we want to challenge as a team, you can just feel that camaraderie and that elation that you feel.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you can do this. You're not as like horrible. Like it's just because you're saved from tribal council and everything. But then I would say the real best parts, if you will, my favorite parts is like after the show, you realize that you can really go through, you can do a lot. It's a psychological, like I did that. And it's a lot of validation. It's like the network validated you for selecting you out of whatever hundreds of thousands of applications. And then you got through got through the whole course. I would say about day 3, I was ready to quit. I was like, this is so ridiculous. I'm like, I am I'm
a freaking doctor.
I'm a doctor.
I'm smarter than all of you.
And I'm letting this guy here determine my future of the show.
Yeah.
And I've been in the same underwear for 3 days, maybe 4 if you count the pre-production stuff. And I'm like, I was just like, had it, right? And I was like, this is a big mistake. I made a big mistake. And I went to the production team and I was like, this is a really big mistake. I think I need to go home. I need to quit.
Really?
Yeah, you know how grimy you feel after just like traveling international?
Well, I'll tell you. I've been through quite a few hurricanes. I used to live in Florida. So the first major hurricane that I was in Florida for Andrew, and I remember like one of the trees in the backyard like crashed on the house, and that was like kind of devastating. But for that week, I remember bathing in the hot tub. Like, it wasn't hot because we didn't have like electricity, but I bathed in that for a couple days until the power came back on and we had running water again. So like I remember doing that as a kid. I was like 5. And then in high school we had Hurricane Charlie hit. And when that one hit, it was like we went to bed with it being a category 1 in the Gulf of Mexico, headed up to Louisiana. Like we were not worried. We went to the store and we got like a couple things of Gatorade and some bags of chips. And we're like, we got something because it was that like psychological, like
I'm good here.
Everyone's preparing. We should go get something, And then in the middle of the night, Charlie took a hard right and turned into a category 5 and fucked up my hometown. And we were without power for 9 days. And we had 2 dogs in the house. We had a fish tank my dad was trying to keep alive. He was running the fish tank with the truck. It was like he pulled the truck into the doorway, hooked the battery up to it, and was running the truck. And he didn't want to lose the thousands and thousands of dollars of fish and coral that are in this fish tank. And I'm like, it smells like a wet dog at the beach in this house. It's like, I'm going to a friend's house. I don't think they had power either, but it just didn't smell over there. I was so sensitive to smell. But then
Which probably helps you with your line of work.
it's wild. My sense of like my smell and my taste are so sensitive. Like when I go, like if I come home and like there's something off, like I'll walk in the door and I'll like, and my wife's like, "What?" She's like, "What?" I was like, "It smells weird," But anyway, but then what I was getting at is another hurricane hit. I was here in LA, and Hurricane Maria hit my hometown, and it was really bad. And I flew into town and I joined a chef mission, and we cooked thousands of meals. Like what Jose Andres does, like this is another company, and they're just not, they don't have the eyes on them that Jose has, but they chase natural disasters, and 2 semi trucks, and 1 semi truck is a giant kitchen. And I spent, I don't know, a week with these guys, 14 days, no power at my parents' house. I was just sleeping in sweat. And then I would just get up and I would go cook all day in sweat. It was just like I was just sweaty. It was just
Well, it
like,
sounded very rewarding. I mean,
oh,
what
it was
you did,
amazing.
that sounds.
I mean, it was amazing. We were doing 9,000 meals a day, feeding the entire town. I did it for a whole week. 3 days before that, my brother and I, we got chainsaws and we went around, like right after the hurricane happened. We went around and we were just cutting people's cars and homes where like trees had fallen, and like this one lady, we went to this house, and there was a tree that blocked her car, and it didn't fall on the car, but it fell behind. But it was, her car was, when she pulled in, it was all the way up to the garage, and this tree was so big, like her car couldn't move, so she couldn't get anywhere. And then another tree had fallen, and it had fallen on her front door, so she couldn't even like get out the front door. She could go out the back, but she was just this little old lady, and you could tell. My brother and I, we rolled up and we just started cutting these trees up with chainsaws, and she was just like, she opened the window and like looked out and was like, "Who are these kids? Like, why are they here? Right?
And why do they have a chainsaw?"
And then she just opens the door.
Her car was okay and it wasn't crushed at all?
No, it missed the car, but then she was just like so grateful. She was just like, "Thank you so much." We're like, "No problem. We got to go to the next one." And she was, I know she was just like, she didn't have family to come help her, and it was just like, we were just doing what we could, and we were just going down the street, just cutting.
That's amazing.
But so I feel like, yeah, like the dirty, like humidity, like no problem. I could handle it.
Well, see, you should tell Jeff Probst. Here's your next contestant right here.
I'm gonna send you in. And go, "Hey, I got a guy." He'll be like, "Oh, you're back? What are you trying to put on Shark Tank?"
Exactly. Totally confused.
But okay, so you were saying you were gonna quit. You felt like you.
Oh yes. About day 3, I wanted to quit because I was like, I feel so grimy. This is terrible. Like even washing yourself in the ocean, you're like, the salt doesn't come off your skin, and there's not like a towel or you can rinse yourself off or anything like that. It was just really horrible. And they told me, well, you're not going to really go anywhere. We're not flying you back home. So you're just going to be like basically waiting, camping, but you won't be in the game. You would just be camping. I'm like, okay. Well, if that's the case, then I gotta stay. Then I'm gonna stay, and I'm gonna just do the best that I can, just knowing that my time is limited, and I'll just do the best that I can do. And that's basically what I did.
Yeah.
And it's just like once I kind of, like you said, you kind of focus in and you just lean in. It's like this is your reality. At least the maximum 39 days, you can just dig in and just
when
immerse yourself.
When you can't go anywhere else, you're like, okay, this is it.
Yeah. And then this just, how it is, like 24 hours a day with the cameras on you. That too is just it's like a psychological stress too.
Yeah. For me, it's kind of weird. I have, like, I tune them out. Mm-hmm. Like, obviously they're here now, but like once I'm in and focus, like there's so many cameras on MasterChef, and I never even felt them unless they wanted me to like talk right into it, which was, I don't know. I love it. I love being in front of the camera.
I would want to do Cutthroat Kitchen.
Why?
That seems like fun. Yeah.
That's like my least favorite one.
Because it's so absurd.
Absurd.
It is some of the most absurd things, and you can't tell the chef, like the tasting
right. He
judge,
has no idea.
They have no idea that you've like used some.
You had to use one hand and a spatula only. They're like, the butchery on this steak is really bad. You're like, well, I did it with a spatula.
And the other contestants are just so well composed. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, inside you could just see this emoji.
Boiling. Yeah, boiling.
That would be a fun one.
But you know how to cook.
No, I don't know how to cook. No, I
What
just
do you-
keep my children alive. Remember, I mentioned that at the top. I have a nanny.
Yeah, but hold on. But you went and worked in your parents'
yeah.
restaurant.
I mean, honestly, like cooking these days, you could find a recipe and relatively easily
Everywhere.
and then it's just like high school chemistry at that point. Just like once you figure out,
You're
okay,
such a doctor.
you have this, you follow these steps. At the end, you'll have this, and then if you didn't work out so great, then you say, okay, then I got to change these things, and it's just chemistry, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a science. But it's fun because like sometimes the variables, like when a variable occurs, you get a different result, and sometimes it's better.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, oh wait, what did I do to make it like this?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so which, you know, obviously baking is more of a science. You have to be really precise. But I've been doing so much baking the last few years. It is a science as far as like ratios, but people are like, you have to follow a recipe exact. Well, no, you don't. If you understand the ratios, you can play with it, and then you get different textures, you get different sizes, flavors, whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
I kind of like to do that. I like to find the recipes that I like and make my own modifications to it.
Yeah.
So
where was your parents' restaurant?
In Denver, and then like all over Colorado too. Like they're one of the first Chinese families that were basically doing the American styled Chinese restaurants, and then it was like sort of like Panda Express before Panda Express
What
was a
years?
thing.
What years?
In the 80s. Yeah.
Any into the 90s at all?
My
Were you
family
guys in
still
the
had some Chinese restaurant. Like they weren't operating it, but it was like theirs. And they kind of evolved into like some they had some businesses with Mexican restaurants too in Denver too. So I
lived in Denver for 9 years.
So my sister owns the restaurant that was near Denver Children's. Near
Okay.
down, and it was called Walk Uptown.
Amazing.
So that was one of hers. But then a lot of the other ones were like they were at the point where they basically open the restaurant and then they sell it to another family to operate it because it's just too much.
Right.
Working in the kitchen, working in a restaurant is so hard work.
Yeah. So your parents would just get the machine going and then sell it.
Yeah. Get enough momentum.
Wow.
So that was what my childhood was, just working in restaurants.
Just
and
like you're
and
free
translated
labor.
that into Survivor. That was like so washing those dishes.
If you
in
can
the
survive
ocean.
in a kitchen. That's how did your parents land in Colorado?
Okay, so when they first came to America, they were in California. Makes
What year
sense.
was that?
1974.
Wow.
And so the San Francisco Chinese community said, "You're never learning English, and your children will never speak English with an American accent if you stay in San Francisco. You need to go in the middle part of the country, and you'll be assimilated." So they went to Utah, where I was born, and they didn't really assimilate so great there. But then they went to Colorado, which there's a large Vietnamese population there from after the war. And so there's a lot of cultural similarities and a lot of people who are Vietnamese who are ethnically Chinese. And I feel like they had more of a community there.
Yeah.
And so that's how they decided to set up roots there. And that's where I went to. My sisters were born, and I went to college. And then I came back to California for residency. And I've been here almost 20 years now.
Wow. Amazing.
I love it here.
Yeah?
You like it better than Florida?
Oh, of course. Florida's weird. Florida's wild. I mean, Miami is cool because Miami has culture and art, and I love that about Miami. I mean, my hometown in Florida, it's very just, I don't know, like it's a snowbird town.
Yeah.
It's filled with a lot of people that have moved down, and I mean, it's growing. Like the city is huge now. We have a Florida Gulf Coast University. They made it, into the NCAA finals, so that like put our city on the map. We've had a couple of American Idols come from
Mm-hmm.
there. I came from there, so the city's growing, and it's become it's become more of a destination and that kind of thing. But you don't have that like culture that like LA has. Like you can get authentic cuisines from so many different countries and cultures here in LA. Like you can't get that in Fort Myers, Florida. You can't get that in a lot of, but like
Hmm.
but we had that. I mean, I remember that in Colorado there were I had several friends that were Chinese, and one I would go to his house after school, and he had he had it was like a big plastic tub, and it had the little individual Jello,
Hmm.
like
It's like the
lychee
art. Yeah,
Jello.
yeah. Hmm.
And I was like, I fell in love with those. I was like, these are amazing. And then when we moved from Colorado back to Florida, I never got them again. I only had them over at his house. I didn't know where his.
Until you moved to LA.
And then I came to LA and I saw them, and I was like, yes.
Yeah, I was just reading this article, and I feel like LA, because it has all these like different cultures, and they have their own, like people who are purist in their own cuisines and
Hmm.
their own culture. But then I just read this article about this one Vietnamese restaurant that was a hybrid of like Armenian, Japanese, and Vietnamese food. And I'm like, this
What?
is only in LA can you
Right.
have a restaurant
Right.
like this
Right.
that has so many, like three different cultural um, hybrid
Yeah.
fusion. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. And is it all different chefs, or is it
This one particular guy.
just one guy?
Yeah, this one. I'll forward you the article.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I struggle with this topic where I mean, I don't struggle with it personally with like being against it. I like if a chef is a good at a cuisine, I don't care what their ethnicity is or where they grew up. If they're good at the cuisine, it they appreciate that cuisine. They're doing it at a high level and they're sharing it with people and feeding people. I think that's like what helps make the world go round, and we learn about each other,
Hmm.
right? But there's this other like there's a group of people that are like if I was to cook Chinese food, or Andrew Zimmern. Andrew Zimmern has traveled the world 10 times over eating food in every country out there, and he has a Chinese restaurant, and there's people that have attacked him and saying it's cultural appropriation, and it's like, how about it's cultural appreciation? Like,
Exactly. That's a
right?
good word for it.
I
Because
got that from Graham Elliott. Thank you, Graham.
because I feel like it's more that it just demonstrates his mastery of the kitchen
Right.
and and using spices. There's nothing proprietary about being Chinese and cooking Chinese food. You know what I
Well,
mean?
right. Like I said, I give it a good example with cilantro. It's like it's used in Indian cuisine, it's used in Mexican cuisine, it's used in Thai cuisine. Those are three different points, all spread across the globe, and cilantro is heavily used in all of them, and a big contributor to a lot of their unique flavor. But it's one herb.
Yes.
Like no one owns that.
There's plenty to go around.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's a part of this like group that just has to be outraged at something. Like
Yes.
they're just trying. It's like every time they turn around, they're outraged
We
at
call
it.
those cave people, those citizens against virtually everything.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, I get it. Citizens
Against
against
virtually everything.
everything. Oh my gosh, I
They're
love
gonna.
that.
This could be something really silly, and they will still find people who are protesting it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, which also I think waters down and dilutes the things that really do need to be protested and the things that we do need to fight for,
Mhm.
right? Like, so, you know, but I feel like food, it can be like a great equalizer,
Of course,
because
every culture has food
yeah,
to bring people together,
yeah,
and I think that that's what we forget.
yeah,
Mhm.
people do, and I think now it's podcasts.
Indeed,
I have a bunch of stuff.
you have a great laugh. My
Oh,
goodness,
thank you.
it's
Um,
very joyful.
and it's genuine. It's kind of quirky. It's kind of loud. It's kind of weird.
It's your signature.
It's something. Um, Man, this has been such a good conversation so far, and we've really talked about so much. Did you feel on the show at all like there was anything like when it was happening, like did it feel life changing? Like, did you know like you're gonna come back to the States, this is gonna air, and it's gonna change the trajectory of your life? Did you have any of those moments?
I don't think at the time it would.
It felt
It really felt like not in the moment, but when and maybe it's just my sense of kind of denial or procrastinating what the reality is. Like, okay, I feel like that's something you can't. It's so ambiguous. You can't control the future until like things start kind of slotting in place, and maybe your your patients recognize you, and then like staff members start talking to you and be like, hey, I just saw her and last night, but then she's here
right.
giving me anesthesia. And it's like they want to you just can't leave work until you have like an hour. Like you can't even leave the hospital because you'll run into somebody and they want to have a 10-minute conversation about last night's episode, and then like 2 hours later you're finally home. And so I feel like those little things kind of just happened after the show for me. And I would say that now this whole accident of Survivor is kind of what's almost defined me now. And people will meet me or I know these people from work, but I don't really know them. They're like, I know that you did Survivor, blah, blah, blah. And then they'll go and I'm like, so people kind of now know that as me. And it's like, it was such a small element of my life so long ago. And it was such an accident.
Right.
But now it's like kind of just reshaped how I see myself. And because I'm like, this is so not me. I'm like, I don't like being in the sun. I like have this tree mail hat that I've like tied with like this handmade twine from this tree to cover my skin.
Right.
So I don't get sun damage. And I'm like, I'm just going to hide in the shade. This is like so the anti Edna Ma.
Right.
But they're like, I can't believe you did this. I'm like, I can't believe I did it either. It's just like a total accident. But now it's like become who I am. And I've kind of like embraced that idea, like that accident experience that just happened so long ago for such a short period of time in the scheme of things.
Yeah.
But I really all those times I've cried, all those mistakes and all those things, all those ways I've humiliated myself. I'm just like, you know what, that happened. I lived with it, and people made fun of how I played. People are like, there's always mean people out there. I did it. I owned it, and now here I am right now. I'm fine.
Yeah. It's amazing. We can do, like we were talking earlier, we're capable of doing so much, but also like equally as fragile, right?
Oh yeah.
Like
you just need like just the I'm trying to figure out right now. I have kind of 2 young kids. I just want to give them just the right amount of trauma to motivate them. Just to motivate them, but not too much to go into the psychiatrist's office for the rest of their lives. My mom did this thing. You know what I mean? You just need the right amount.
So what is that?
Have you figured it out? I'm asking you.
I don't know.
I'm asking you because I'm trying to figure it out right now. What's the right amount of trauma?
What is the right? I don't have kids. I don't know. I think
like there's just a finite where this kind of makes people spiral out into drug use, and there's like enough of experience that kind of catapult people to make them want to be better, and then to use that as rocket fuel rather than.
See, for me, like my fuel was always the bullies. It was like, like.
But what is it that made you not a bully, and what do you think made you turn those people who are bullies into the successful person that you are now? It's like, screw those people. How did you kind of overcome that?
I feel like it was always just like, it was the part of there was the bully, and then there was the bully that would say I couldn't. And it was like, no, I can, and like just wanting to prove that I could do something that somebody said I couldn't do. Right. Or you're too short for that, or you're not as good as me, or whatever. And it's like, and I moved around a lot as a kid. So I didn't have like I didn't grow up with like that core group of friends. Like my youngest brother, like he was in one town all of school. He has this solid group of friends. And like, I look at that and I'm like, I don't have that. And I never got that. But what I got instead was this ability to talk to anyone about anything at any time. I could be dropped anywhere and I'm comfortable. I can be anywhere and succeed. It just like pick a city, I'll go figure it out. Like, so
you probably maybe have a little bit more emotional EQ for that, because he had this comfort zone. He didn't have to ever leave that and be out of his comfort zone. But
he also recognizes everything that like I've done. So we have good communication, and he takes my advice, and which, he's 8 years younger than me, and I'm giving him advice. Like most people don't take advice. It's like they'll hear it and then they'll still go do what they were gonna do. And like he really takes my advice, and so it's really cool to just see like we're of the same family, but we had two totally different upbringings because we're 8 years apart.
So almost like you're a second, like an additional parent.
Yeah, well, and I kind of was for a lot of it because when my mom remarried, so he's my half brother. My mom remarried, and my parents were both working full-time jobs and going to school, and I was at one point 10 years old babysitting. Like that would never happen now.
No, definitely.
Never. But like that was the time, so it was like,
so you just had just the right amount of trauma,
right?
because I mean you couldn't leave your kid 10-year-old even if you weren't supervising another child, that you can. I don't think in most states you can't leave them
Anymore.
unsupervised.
Yeah. Well, is there a law?
Yes.
Was there a law when I was doing that?
At least recently, I had this discussion with a girlfriend of mine. Like I think in state of California, a 9-year-old can be left at home unsupervised for like 5 or 10 minutes. Then
That's
10
it.
is like 15 or 20 minutes. There's like increments.
Okay.
Because we were having a
look
debate
this
whether
up.
because her husband had left their 9-year-old at home to go pick up a pizza. And
Oh my God.
he left him at home, and I cannot believe this. And so I said, this must be some sort of legal definition of what's like allowed and not allowed. And so,
Let's find out.
I think it varies in each state too.
Yeah.
So,
when can you leave a child home alone? 11 to 12 years old may be left alone for up to 3 hours, but not late at night or in circumstances requiring inappropriate responsibility. So like me babysitting my
that was
toddlers.
child. Your parents had neglected you basically.
No, they taught me how to just figure it out. We were free range kids.
Yep.
Free range parenting.
How
That's
young
funny.
are you now?
I'm 36.
Oh, so you're very young, and that was like still relatively probably on the cusp when it was like
Probably on the
getting
cusp.
socially unacceptable to do that.
Yeah. I mean, look, and both my brothers survived, so.
Good job on that.
You know what it was, though? My parents were hiring babysitters, and we had a babysitter that all she wanted to do was, like, talk to her boyfriend on the phone. And I was a very active kid. Like, the babysitter was not there to watch me. The babysitter was there to play with me. Like, we were playing football, we were jumping on the trampoline, we were riding bikes. Like, you better stretch before you come over, because I'm putting you to work. That's what I thought, right? And there was one babysitter, like I said, she just wanted to talk to her boyfriend on the phone, and she couldn't follow the recipe for the blue box of macaroni and cheese. And my brother and I were hungry, and it was like, I have 2 brothers, by the way, so the other one wasn't even born yet. Dalton, that's 8 years younger. So Dusty's 4 years younger than me. So Dusty's like 2, and I'm 6, and I climb up on a stool, and I make the macaroni and cheese. I might have been a little bold.
First MasterChef challenge.
Yeah, exactly. It was. And I did it. She thought it was funny. She was like, "Oh my God, you did it! That's amazing!" She tells my dad, and my dad's like, "You're fired." He's like, "You're done."
That was her biggest mistake, telling your dad.
Yeah.
Should I keep that a secret? And
Yeah.
then she would have gotten an easy gig.
Yeah, then she just come over. Yeah, cook yourself dinner. I'm gonna be out on the phone. I'm like, great. Then I would have been like in the kitchen all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had this other babysitter. She wanted to talk on the phone too. My mom had one of those like long phone cords, like 50 feet, whatever. So she walked out the front door because my brother and I were being loud, and she closed the door, and I was like, "Bitch!" And I locked it, and then I hung up the phone.
Oh
and
my gosh.
We left her out there. She got fired too. So we left her out there for my dad to come home. Like he came home. He's like, "Why are you out here?" She's like, "They locked me out." And she's got the phone. Like, it was it.
And she couldn't even call anybody.
Well, she couldn't because we hung it up.
Right. She's just like out there hanging, like waiting for probably your dad to drive her home or something.
I think she drove, but we had her keys inside because we had her purse inside. So she was just
terrible.
stuck out there, and the evidence was, well, I was out here on the phone not watching your kids.
Oh my God, that's so terrible and awesome at the same time.
It was awesome.
I hope you have children that are like yourself.
Yeah, I don't have any kids
Yet.
in the future. I don't know if it's happening. My brother Dusty just had a kid today.
Oh wow!
I
Congratulations.
became an uncle for the first time today.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, so that's cool. Hopefully I get to meet her soon. We always knew that he would be the first one to have a kid out of us three. We always knew he'd be first, but he actually held out a lot longer than we thought. We thought he was going to do it in high school. And,
Well, this is good. It's good that he showed some restraint.
yeah, he made it to 32 before having a kid. That's kind of impressive. Jesus, my brother's 32 years old. Do you have siblings?
I do have two. I have an older half sister I mentioned earlier, and two younger sisters.
Were they working in the restaurants too?
Not so much because I was kind of the older of the siblings,
Okay.
and they kind of got sheltered because I just was.
Your dad's
able
like,
to
look
take-
at this restaurant. It's so profitable. Labor cost is super
Pretty
low.
much. Now the
He's
labor
got-
cost is
They buy the restaurant. They're like, our labor is not the same.
right. Yeah, your P&L, 0 for the employee labor benefits. No, that was that. I feel like they missed out on all that. The work of operating a restaurant. But then they also had the privilege of being able to play tennis and do after-school activities that I didn't really get to do. Yeah.
So what do your siblings do for professions?
My my sister, my older, the younger sisters, I guess. The next sister she has her PharmD and her PhD in pharmacy, and she works in Arizona as a pharmacist.
Okay.
And my youngest sister, who I'm very close to her, she's about 5 years younger than I am. She has her PhD. She teaches at Cal State Northridge in implicit bias. So she teaches what makes people racist. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So she studies faces and how people register faces. If that face looks biracial, Black, Asian, her job is to study faces.
Wow.
So she was kind of interviewed on CNN about when Barack Obama was being elected, and it's John McCain. People would say, I'm not racist, and then vote for John McCain. And now with the Black Lives Matter and the social movement that we're experiencing across the world, she's been really involved with training everybody from I won't say the company's names, but a lot of companies that you would know, and teaching what it means, how you can be, how she's gonna just.
How to
be
just
so
be
upset
less
with me.
racist?
How to be less racist, but she's just so embarrassing that I cannot articulate exactly what she does. But basically, how to be. If you don't feel like you're racist, you may still be racist. You're just unaware that you are, and just kind of call what can you do? Just basically don't ask your one Black friend, is this all these questions that you may have about racism, the race related questions.
And does she approach it from all races? I guess what I'm trying to say is in many different countries there's racism.
Yes. So she.
It's not just white people towards other races.
So racism appears she just recently came back from Europe, giving a talk there, and racism is experienced very, very differently there because I think of the history of colonialization of North Africa.
Right.
And so they don't perceive themselves as having racism there, because they have a longer period of time of maybe interracial mixing with North Africa, and it's but the people who are African American here came over not on their free will, they came over as slaves. So it's a little bit more of a clear line. And so there it's okay, it was colonializations and maybe some slavery, but that was a long time ago. So today it's very different. They don't she was telling me that some of the people that she was talking to just doesn't think that racism exists in Europe.
That's so crazy.
It's crazy.
I think it exists in more people than what I think is maybe even documented. And I'd also even go as far as saying that everyone at some point, whether they realize it or not, has said or done something. Mm-hmm. And I think the best thing that you can do is just try to look inward and say, how can I, one, not do or say those things again, and try to become aware of them. Or I know but it's also it's like it's taught, right? Like I know, like growing up, I remember like kids saying these jokes, and like we would laugh, and then looking back, I'm like, that was racist. Like, why were we saying that? Who taught that kid that joke, and why was he saying it to me, or why was he saying it to my friend? And then it gets repeated, and then it's like, man, I didn't know what I was saying.
Even like from talking to her, and we talk, we're very close, we talk regularly all the time, every day. And you know, babies at 3 months show racial preference to the caregivers, the race of that their caregivers. So if you are Caucasian and you have nannies or caregivers of all different races, they don't show preference. But if you have a preference, your only caregivers are white, then they will show a preference for white people.
Interesting.
At 3 months. This is before they're verbal, and before and then of course racism is very, very complicated. That the social construct of how our society is, everything from lending to
Right.
how people are portrayed on TV.
Right.
And it's just it's so multifaceted that it's really, and I think that the number one thing is like first being aware of this,
Yeah.
and then just like these people, these trolls on the internet, just to think before you say, and it's just, and also just doing yourself a check. Okay, maybe this person is hurting themselves. That's why they're putting that negative stuff out there. You don't know where people have come from,
Right.
where it brought them into what they are now, like
Right.
their social situation, even their metabolic situation, like fat shaming or whatever. It's just like it's so easy to jump to conclusions. But just to say, okay, well, maybe that person has some sort of metabolic disorder. That's why they're metabolism or something.
Right.
And
And
it's so more complicated than what we just,
it's so complicated, and I think that, and just like you said with the a 3-month-old learning racial bias. Is that your phone?
Yeah, it's just, I think I just have a patient in the recovery room. Hopefully he's fine.
Do you need a you have a patient in a recovery room and your phone is blowing up?
I have a very competent nurse. I give her orders.
Oh my goodness.
If you need to turn off, you should turn off. It's like right there. I just want to make sure it's not an alarm. Like, don't forget your kids.
Do you want to take a look at it?
You can just turn it off. It's fine.
Oh.
Yeah, it's an alarm. Just to don't forget to get your kids.
Oh, it's right.
Have you ever left your kids anywhere?
I've been stuck in surgery before, and it was like.
Yeah, what do you do with that?
I've been stuck in surgery, and it's like you're just at the mercy of the surgical schedule and the complication of the case. And I had to get my kid. It's like my kid was the last kid at preschool. And I'm like, oh, it's not so bad. There's like another kid. There's like another kid who's still here too. And you have to pay, whatever it is, $1 a minute over the time the school closes. And I'm like,
What?
Oh yeah, or sometimes it's more. Like if your school closes at 5 or whatever, like the preschool, and you're like getting your kid at 7, it's $1 a minute over the hours. And so I'm like, oh, I'm not that bad. There's that other kid. I'm like, oh, that's the teacher's kid. I didn't realize the teacher's kid stuck at school because of me.
That is so crazy.
And now I have a nanny that drives, so this is totally avoided now.
Yeah, I mean the nanny pays for itself in that case.
Exactly, but I don't usually run my schedule that late.
Oh man, we've been, we got left a couple times, places.
Oh, it's, at the time, it's like it was the thing to do. It's like not neglect.
No, I mean, how do you? If I had a kid, I don't know. I mean, I've never left my dog anywhere, but I don't take my dog a lot of places. I don't know. I couldn't even imagine. I don't know.
He'll be there.
No, I'm the fun uncle. I have a bunch of friends that have kids, and I'm Uncle D-Rock to all of them.
You should savor that moment until as long as you can.
Oh, and that's the thing. I'll go over, I'll hang out with them. We play whatever games or yard games, or we cook. Like I cook with them, or swinging. Like my one friend has this huge tree in his front yard. He's built all these jungle gym things on it, and his kid swings from branch to branch, and I go out and swing with him or whatever the thing, and then it's like. And then the sugar kicks in, and then they have the meltdowns, and then it's like,
bye.
I'm out.
See you soon.
It's cool. See you next time. So I enjoy that, and I can be the positive influence in their life, and be someone that they can grow up and trust, and then but not have to deal with all the expenses and
You get all the benefits.
yeah. So that's what I'm doing. Speaking of kids, you also have a children's book.
Yes.
You're like, okay, so I work so much that I've left my kid at school, but let me go add one more thing to the list.
Well, that was like only twice. I've learned. Okay, so like on the days that I cannot reliably, have no reliable pickup and I'm going to be late, at this point, I've just kind of figured out my schedule not to overschedule myself. But I do have a lot of downtime.
Yeah.
And I feel like I said earlier, like I like to solve problems and I like to be creative. And so the children's book that you're referring to.
Yeah, tell us about it, because I think it's a brilliant idea, and I already have I have ideas for you. So
thank you. I need ideas because I think I'm sitting too close to my anesthesia vaporizer. So growing up in America, I grew up speaking Cantonese, but not really speaking Mandarin, and I was like basically conversant. It's like the difference probably. Cantonese is spoken in southern China near Hong Kong, and basically outside of Hong Kong and the people who have left Hong Kong, Cantonese is not really spoken broadly. Like it's in Taiwan and in mainland China, it's all Mandarin. So I grew up speaking Cantonese, and so it's very similar. It's like Italian and French, or Italian and Spanish. Yeah, so there's a lot of origins, and the written is very similar. It's identical for the most part, just like the words might have different meanings.
Okay.
So I was conversant in Cantonese, but I was illiterate. And having grown up in Colorado, it was like there was not really a Chinese school that you can go to. You can go down to Chinatown and just start you can't just start speaking to a lot of Chinese people in your native tongue, or even like read the menu. I couldn't do any of that. But having lived in Los Angeles, I started sending our kids to a Mandarin immersion program, and they also were taking Spanish. So that was a lot of fun for the kids to use three different languages in one sentence.
Well, and like important ones.
Yeah,
like
especially like now it's like a global society.
Yeah.
And so we would. I found that like a lot of other people had the same kind of problem. Like I want to read to my kids in Chinese, but I don't have enough. I don't have a grasp. I can't grasp enough language, or I don't have a strong enough grasp of language to read to them the books that are published in China for children. And I said, well, I'm sure there's a lot of other people like me, ABC, American-born Chinese, who are like children of immigrants, are illiterate. So I have the book is written in English, and I had it translated into Chinese as close as possible, and then the pinyin underneath it. So it gives you like the romanization of how it's pronounced. So somebody like me who'd be like, it'd be like, how are you? Ni hao. It'd be like N-I and space H-A-O.
Amazing.
And so you can kind of read it with the tones. And then I had somebody do a narration of it with some sound design and make it interesting and put it out there. So even if you weren't a native speaker, you can just go to the YouTube channel and just play it and listen to a native speaker speak the language. And again, it's not me, because I don't speak Mandarin.
Right.
It's not my native tongue. But I do speak it now a little bit, not that great, but enough to kind of be conversant.
That's so cool. I think, and I love that. You want to share the title of the book?
Oh yeah, thanks. It's called Travel, Learn, and See, TLC, your friends.
Yeah.
So I like the homonym of SEE versus like what we think of as tender love and care.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a huge fan of Rick Steves. I don't know if you know who Rick's Public Television. He's this travel writer. Originally he started off with writing travel guides as the back door through Europe, and these are the restaurants you need to hit to have an authentic European experience. And then he got a TV show on public television, and it was like a 20-minute segment, and he'd take you around. And I love that idea where just like you were not doing touristy things, you're just immersive with the culture and the locals, and that was his shtick, that was his thing. And then and Dora the Explorer is this animated series where she speaks English and Spanish, and you kind of learn Spanish just by like keeping your eyes open.
Right.
And I kind of wanted to create some hybrid of that, so it's like a little bit immersive, and you're bringing two different cultures in. So the story is written about, inspired by my son and his friend who's studying Chinese as well. He's African American, and I feel like in the stories, like, and actually at the preschool in Los Angeles, a lot of the people who are studying Chinese are not ethnically Chinese. It's sort
Right.
of like your cooking situation. You don't have to be Chinese
Right.
to be opening a Chinese restaurant. And I said, you don't have to be British to speak English.
Right.
And so it's just, so that kind of comes up a little bit. And I think nowadays, especially with this globalization of our economies and culture
Yeah.
and everything and the internet, it's just she's just to be able to speak only one language is a bit of a disadvantage.
It is a disadvantage. And I mean, I love the idea of this book and how it's just it's breaking down walls and really, it's stuff like this that's like there is a really great future for the kids that are growing up right now, like your children and my friends' children. It's like I see the way they are being raised, and it's really cool to see stuff like this.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention. Thank you. And so, like, one of the stories is the boys meeting each other. So it's travel, learn, and see your friends, and then
Yeah.
TLC Shanghai, and then TLC the Great Wall. So, that's where like the Rick Steve goes in. So he visits this area. It's like a little immersive story, and it has like English, Chinese, and then, and my goal is to have a couple more cities, so people like children who don't live in China, or Americans, or overseas Chinese, want to visit China. They have like an idea of where these fun places to go
Yeah.
in China with your kids, and have like on the back page I have like, this is like the little historical information and some food that's interesting. So one of the ones I have is a little synopsis of it's to remind me to don't forget your children and roll down the windows if you do have them in the car. You can just turn it off. Thank you. Sorry. One of the pages at the back of the book is the Peking duck. And so in Peking, why is it called Peking duck when the capital of China is Beijing? And Peking is the Cantonese pronunciation of Beijing, or Bucking in Cantonese. So they just kept that as a historical, I don't know,
I
anomaly.
didn't know that.
And so in a lot of cultures in Chinese particularly, like to combine the different textures in food. So you'll have this little white bun thing. It's like a taco essentially, and it's like a white
Like a bao
flour,
bun?
a bao bun.
Yeah,
And
love
then they
them.
make those little tacos, and then they kind of pair it with the crispy skin. That's not me for sure. A crispy.
Not me. Where is my phone?
I'll back up. So in the back of the Travel, Learn, and See, I have like a little food for each of my books. The back has a little bit of a food introduction, if you will. Like Shanghai is very known for their xiaolongbao. So most of the xiaolong is just a small little steaming tray, and I'm only going
Okay.
into more detail of this because
Yeah.
of your background. So the steaming stacked trays, it's
Those are called what?
long. It's just
Long.
like a little tray where the steam kind of
Yeah.
goes up, and then shao means small. So most of the time the buns are like these steaming trays are like
Huge,
this,
yeah.
and so this is like shao long bao.
Okay.
But Chinese is a language of a lot of homonyms, and so people would say, well, it looks like shao long, but it looks like a little dragon, because if you look at the ridges of how the dumpling is folded, it looks like a dragon rolled up on its back. So people will say that is part of the reason why it's called shao long, meaning little dragon. But I think the actual word origin comes from means little steaming tray, because usually they're bigger. In the back of the Beijing, the Great Wall, it goes into detail a little bit about the food and how the Chinese like to pair different textures in one bite, if you will.
Yeah.
So a white bao on the outside with the crispy part of the duck, and sometimes they could take days to marinate that duck and then puff it up.
Mm-hmm.
And then they take the crispy cucumbers, cut julienne style, and then the carrots, like the pickled vinegar carrots, and they kind of combine that in one bite. So just a little food introduction for
I
those
love
people.
that. So you do have a goal to grow this more.
Yes, you always have to leave that door open.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
I was gonna say, my idea was that you got to do this for every major language and an important city for that language. You're already on it. I love it.
You're so kind. Yeah, I'll be busy. I could just quit anesthesia and work on that now.
Well, I don't. You gotta have your
Will you
main
be my
gigs
first
though.
Kickstarter?
You're an anesthesiologist. You got more than I do. But like with Spain, I mean obviously we know Spain has tapas, but they also, I mean, there's amazing architecture there. Same with Italy.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I love this idea. It's so good.
I kind of thought of the Chinese audience, children who are born in China, and those people tend to have, if they're looking outside of their borders, they tend to have a lot of resources, and they want to explore these other countries, and the Chinese people definitely hold Western culture up high and with a lot of respect.
Really?
Yeah, I think so, definitely.
Wow. Well, speaking of food, I like to play a little game with my guests. I do a little blind taste test.
Oh no.
I bring you into my world, being a chef.
Okay, let's do it.
We're always flexing
Let's
our
do it.
palates, but I think you're gonna be like wildly into this.
Okay, let's do it. Let's do it. I'm excited here.
Because I like to
I'm totally allergic to alcohol too. Does it mean alcohol in it?
No.
I'd be like, oh.
No, there's no alcohol.
Okay, thank God.
Are you allergic to anything else?
No.
Okay, we're good. Thank you, Shane. Yeah, like on Hell's Kitchen, they do blind taste testing, and it's like one of the more viewed like challenges. People love to watch, because when you take this out of it, you know,
Yes.
you take your sight out of it,
Yes.
you know, it changes everything.
No more visual cues.
No, which I think you understand this a lot. Let me get the blindfold here.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Do you sleep with one of these things?
No, I sleep with one eye open.
Have you ever been blindfolded before?
Yes, we've had some challenges on the show for. Okay, I can't see anything. There's like a tiny little rim of light, but it's not. I can't even see anything.
Okay.
Just full disclosure.
Wait, you had to do blind
There
challenges?
was a challenge where it was like I was one of the contestants that was blindfolded. I got rammed right into a post.
Oh.
That's where.
What was the challenge?
It was a challenge that involved being coupled with another contestant, and the other contestant was not blindfolded, and so they had to navigate this obstacle course and kind of basically narrate. But then it was like it was a giant fail.
And they just ran you.
Yes. Okay, I hear a zipper bag,
Yeah.
and I hear this is for our listening audience.
I'm trying to get
Here's some packaging.
the food out here.
I'm trying to dial up my
Make
other
sure I-
senses.
Use the right one. Yeah, we're gonna have.
Are these gonna be pleasant tasting things?
Yes. Yeah. I'm not giving you anything tricky or anything weird.
Okay.
Some are common. Some I think you've definitely had everything here. So, since you have traveled, I think you're.
Is it like blue or something?
Like what?
Blue.
No, nothing weird.
Okay.
In fact, it's actually
From Trader Joe's.
Today it's all fruits and vegetables.
Okay, fantastic. And I just have to guess what they are.
Yeah, and then there's a prize.
And then how do I get this stuff into my face?
I'm gonna feed you.
I just met you this first time. That's not weird at all.
No, not at all.
It's just a lot of trust.
I actually, you are so like everyone like I usually get to the point where I tell everyone I'm gonna feed you. You're such a like studious person. You're like, wait a minute, how is this getting? You're like already asking questions. Okay, so what we're gonna do is I will spoon an ingredient into your mouth. So before I'll say open up, and you'll open up, and then you can. If you get it right away, you get it right away.
If you don't move this mic, I feel like I might mess it up.
I'll move the mic.
Okay.
Don't worry. But if you don't know what it is right off the bat, like describe it. Think about it. Tell me.
And I just get one bite of it.
No, I got multiple. If you need more, I got enough. All right. Are you ready to play?
Okay.
Okay.
And how many of these are there?
You got 5.
Okay, 5.
The most amount of questions for the blind taste test.
Okay, I just like to know what I'm going into.
I get you. Except Survivor, you were just like.
Yeah, it's just that's where I learned, you know. After that first time, I'd ask more questions.
Okay, so this first one is used a lot, and this is the last hint I'm giving you.
Okay.
All right, open up.
Okay, it's like room temperature. It's kind of like diced up. It's like crunchy. and I think it's like carrots.
Yeah, carrots. All right, and here I have your water. If you want to reach out, I'll give you your water. You can.
Thank you. That carrots are like a diced carrots.
Diced carrots.
This is so crazy.
All right, mixing it up here.
Mm-hmm.
All right, open up.
Mm-hmm. It's a little bit more slimy.
Slimy.
Mm-hmm. It's like not as like well formed. When I swallowed it really quickly.
Do you need another bite?
It's like a fruit of some sort.
Okay.
But it didn't have like a pit, and it's pretty smooth. It had, maybe had like a texture of a fig or something. A relatively ripe fig.
I think you need another bite.
Okay. Okay, gosh. I'm feeling this one.
Open up.
Mm-hmm.
A new game you can play with your husband.
Okay. That's a very mild taste. I don't know what this one is. It's like I don't feel any seeds in it. It's not very gritty.
Yeah, I mean I wouldn't give you seeds.
Okay.
It's a lot. It's a lot of flesh, right?
Yeah, and it was like it was not super slimy, but it has like, it's not like a kiwi, but kind of that consistency. Maybe like.
Give it a guess.
Have they have a guess? And it's not super duper sweet. Can I have a clue? I guessed fig.
Yeah, fig's way
but
off.
Like a fresh fig, not a dried up
Yeah,
one.
yeah, way off. The color of the meat is yellow orangish.
So it's not like a peach or something like that. It tasted too mild for peach. Definitely not going on any cooking shows, that's for sure.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. Yeah, final guess.
It's like I'll just guess like a nectarine.
Papaya.
Oh, papaya. Okay, I can taste it. I can see it's papaya. I had not anticipated kind of more exotic fruit.
Yeah, that one was pretty mild. All right.
Yes, it was very not super sweet.
All right, let's mix it up.
Okay.
Open up.
Okay. Am I supposed to be describing this?
You don't have to.
Okay.
You can just
Well,
chew it
this
up.
is dry.
You can just chew it up and figure it out.
Okay. Okay. I know what this one is called, but I can't remember right now. It is like a radish.
Yeah.
Is it like one of the Japanese radishes?
It's just a radish.
Okay.
Red radish.
Okay, that's a red radish. Okay. This is so ridiculous.
I should have someone do a blind taste test for me one day. I feel kind of bad. I do this to everybody else. And I'm sitting here just laughing.
You're having a blast over
I'm
here.
having a blast. Okay. Man, both of our phones today. What is with us? My phone doesn't buzz at all week, and then
I just wanted to be here and meet you. I would usually try to go for a day that I don't work for stuff like this.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you squeezed me in. Thank you.
I'm glad it worked out. All right, open up. Oh shit! I
was gonna ask if I needed a bib, but actually. Okay. So the texture feels like fruit again. It's a little bit more tart. I feel like I should fish that piece out.
You found it. How did you do that?
I just felt it go down here. It's more fruit, but I can't. It's very. I want to say it's like something where the skin has been removed, and but it's like almost tastes like a cherry.
You are so funny.
Why is it funny? I can't think of. It's like, is it like a peach or a nectarine?
Kiwi.
A kiwi. Okay, that was a kiwi. That doesn't taste like a kiwi.
It's wild how like fruits like change flavor.
Maybe it was one of those yellow kiwis.
No.
Because I didn't even feel the taste. I didn't even feel the seeds.
I will be blown away if you get this one.
Oh gosh.
All right, open up.
Shoop shoops.
Yeah, I diced it up.
This one actually has like more of the texture of what I would think is like the kiwi.
Yeah.
It's not. I don't think it's passion fruit because the seeds are different.
You're in the ballpark though.
I can cook like some more.
You want some more?
Actually, I bet I can't. Okay. This is the dragon fruit.
Yeah. Wow. Good job.
Is it?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so I could feel the seeds in it.
You remove the blindfold.
Okay. Awesome. Okay.
That was fun, huh?
I didn't die.
You didn't die.
I didn't die.
And you won an epic mega cookie.
Awesome. Thank you. Amazing. I could even eat this with my eyes open.
Yeah.
This matched your sweatshirt earlier.
Give it a.
Love
give
it.
it an open. Check it out.
I will do that right now. Let me stand so I don't mess up your furniture. Did you design this yourself?
I did.
Wonderful. My children are gonna like this.
They're gonna love it.
It looks like you have a cherry. They love cherries.
Oh, so this is one of my new flavors. It's pineapple upside down cookie.
Love it. Amazing. Thank you so much. I didn't even expect this. This was a nice bonus.
Yeah, my
Well,
little gift for coming on and hanging out. You would have got it no matter how well you did on the challenge.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank
this was my COVID project. I was like, I wanted to create something that, I could, that like my fans and people around the country could
get a piece of you.
get a piece of me, because
Exactly.
it's like, I get calls for private dinners, and now I'm like a full-time private chef, and I don't have anything for the public. I was like, I need to create something, but like, I have this rock and roll vibe, and I wanted to make something
Like the earring here?
Yeah.
See,
And
it's just the same.
Yeah. So it's like, I tied it all together, but like, I was like, do I do a hot sauce? What do I do? It's really hard in the foods, like being a chef, to come up with something that one like fits your brand, that you can sell if you don't have a restaurant, if you don't, have your own, like, I don't know, it's like Gordon Ramsay has restaurants, it's like you can go to his restaurants around the world, Guy Fieri has his stuff. It's like, no, and it's like, if I'm gonna enter this world, those are all my competitors too, right?
The market can be a little saturated.
Yeah, so I was like, what can I do that is fun, but enough different, and put my own unique spin on something.
And you could definitely make this like seasonal too, like.
Oh, I do, yeah. So I do 2 flavors that are always constant: s'mores and my celebration cookie, which is funfetti. And that also has its own box. That box is pink, and you open it up and it says celebrate, party, congrats. So I always have those 2. And then the 3rd flavor on the website is always a rotating flavor. So that's the latest one right now, pineapple upside down cookie.
Love it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and then I'm actually next week changing the limited flavor. So that's out.
This is expired, is what you're saying?
No, it's not expired. I just made it, but
I'm just kidding.
no, it's
We have to move these off the shelves right now.
No,
Just
the
checking with you.
limited edition. So you're getting one of the last ones.
I love it.
And
Thank you
then-
so much. I'm gonna eat this,
And then it's gone.
and you will see me eating it on Instagram at
Share.
Edna Ma MD.
Yeah, exactly. Does the book have its own?
Right now. It's just too much. I'm like a one-man show, so
Yeah.
I'm just trying to do. Everything is just on my personal.
Did you get a publisher for the book, or?
I self-published. We did
Yeah.
look for a publisher for a little bit, but it's a very saturated market, and so the publishers are all shrinking down too. So there's not a lot of publishers, and they want somebody who's gonna has a significant following and everything like
Yeah.
that. So I'm slowly growing it, and that's part of the reason I'm here with you.
Great.
And
Well,
so it's a niche thing.
it is, but I think that your book has a potential to not be a niche thing. I think your book has a potential to actually help with, like what we were talking about, the racism that happens before we even know it's happening. I think this can help with that. This can help broaden the minds. I think more now than ever, like everyone's like, yeah, our kids need to speak more than one language, but this helps for those people that maybe are thinking about it or weren't thinking about it. I mean, that's one thing I wish that I would have stuck with the Spanish longer. I mean, I did it a little bit, but if you don't use it, you lose it. And but eventually we'll just
plug something into our head and we'll know all the
I
languages.
saw that episode of Black Mirror too.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So. Well, you're very fascinating, so I'm glad that we got to
Thank
talk
you
about
so
so
much for
much.
the privilege.
All right,
Okay.
I'll let you go.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to A Bunch of Losers with me, Derrick Fox. Please comment below if you guys have questions for any of these guests. I'm sure they would love to answer, and I'll answer as well. So let me know below. Also, you know what to do. Like, share, subscribe, and then also make sure you're following us on Instagram, A Bunch of Losers with Derrick Fox, so you get the update on the new episodes. We will be launching them weekly. All right, thanks, losers.
Action.